history, on everything else. Delay, store, discharge. What does that mean? Those three components of this two-pronged strategy address the rainfall flood risks. The idea being that permeable pavers, grassed areas, that type of thing, delay rainwater from getting into the combined sewer system in Hoboken, so that less material has to go through the North Hudson Sewerage Authority. Store. Hoboken has done significant amounts of work on creating subsurface storage of rainwater under new parks in other areas, storing that water, and then once the storm is ended, discharge that water out to the river so that it never enters the sewerage authority and has to be processed with the rest of the material that's going in. But go back now. I want to go back to the resist portion of it. Resist. What are we trying to do here? Can you go to the next slide, please? When Hurricane Sandy came in, it entered through two points. You can see it with the arrows. It came in through the cove where Harborside Park is, and it came in through the New Jersey Transit Rail Yard. All that water came in and flooded the entirety of Hoboken. The idea behind the resist structure is to build through gates, levees, and permanent concrete structures a system that will allow the next surge to not be able to enter the city and be held at the wall. And there are two components, obviously. One's in the north and one's in the south. Can you go to the next slide? Now, exactly where are we talking? We're talking in the north, roughly 13th Street and Washington, running past 14th Street, through the alleyway, crossing Bloomfield, turning north on Garden, crossing 15th Street, going diagonally through Harborside Park, running along the Hudson Bergen Light Rail and ending in Weehawken. That's the northern section of this. The southern section starts at about 1st and Washington, crosses Observer Highway, enters the New Jersey Transit Rail Yard, continues in the rail yard, crosses Marin Boulevard, Grove Street, and Jersey Avenue, entering into New Jersey Transit property again and ending near the Palisades. So it's a very large, extensive system, about 9,000 linear feet. As a part of the work that was done here, I might be difficult to see, but there was a sewer separation modification contract that was performed. That's the work that was done in the yellow. That work was performed during 2021 and 2022. That work was to separate stormwater from the sewage. So separate the combined sewerage on the unprotected side of the wall. The reason for doing that was so that water would not be able to enter under the structure in a storm surge event, nor is it able now to go into the North Hudson Sewerage Authority and cause their system to overflow. So now that gives you the work that's been done. We then started, can you go to the next slide, please? This is the timeline where we started. Like I said, competition started in 2013. An award of a grant was made in 2014. We started working on a feasibility study and an environmental impact statement in 2015, completing that in 2017. What that allowed us to do is to obtain the remainder of the grant money for this project, as well as begin the design of the project itself. In 2021, like I said, we performed sewer separation, completing it in 2022. We then started this resist structure in 2023, and it will continue toward the end of 2027. As you can see, we're pretty much right in the middle of the construction of this project. And what I want to do now is, now that I've gotten you to today, I want to pass this over to Chris Corliss, who's with their construction management firm, so that he can talk to you about why we're really here today with this closure at 15th Street. So Chris, please take it over.
All right, thanks, Frank. Like Frank said, I'm here tonight to provide an update on the construction in the area of 15th Street and Garden Street. If you could turn to the next slide, please. Thanks. So the construction locations you're seeing on the screen now are a part of the RBD Northern Resist structure. Work has been happening in stages and will be across several streets, including Bloomfield, Garden Street, and Washington Street, and will continue through 2027. The 15th Street crossing that we're discussing tonight is going to be the key focus for this summer and fall. Before I get into some of the details with 15th Street, I do want to put a note out that the portion of the alleyway will be opened for the public by the end of the week. And I also want to just note, you can see on the screen in the Harborside Park area, the current temporary park, its location, it's going to be relocated from its current location to where it's indicated as being relocated this September, while the park construction continues, with the final park being completed at the end of this overall project in 2027. Next slide, please. Thanks. This project was planned, or this was planned in 3 stages to prioritize safety, efficiency, and the long-term durability. So the first closure is already completed. That involved subsurface investigation, utility relocations, and drainage work, which was all needed to inform the second phase or stage, which we're going to go into, which will begin after the July 4th holiday and will last approximately 4 months. This phase includes building the foundation and installing the rail system. There will be one more stage. There will be one more stage that will encompass the final site restoration and amenities, which is to be scheduled. Now, I do want to note that third time will be less disruptive and much shorter. What I'd like to do now is on the next slide, there's going to be a brief little snippet, a little video of, if you could go to the next slide and show the rendering of the gate. Hopefully the video will work. Let's see if we can hit the play, and there you go. So really, hopefully this puts a little context into the size of the gate. And you can show it again, how it will be sliding across the road. That gate is approximately 7 foot high. You can, and that's from the perspective of Garden Street, looking towards 15th. You can do next slide, please. So during this phase, the intersection of 15th and Garden, as well as Garden between 14th and 15th, will be closed to all vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. However, the western sidewalk on Garden Street and the southern sidewalk on 15th Street will always remain open to maintain pedestrian access, which will be shown later on. So what are you going to expect to see during this phase? There's going to be excavation for the resist structure, gate foundation, the pouring of the concrete foundation slab. There will be limited nighttime gas utility relocations that's needed to be performed by PSE&G. The gate rails, new curbs, sidewalks, pavement markings will be installed. Thanks. And I do just want to note that it's anticipated that this fall, the first floodgate, the gate, will be arriving in Hoboken and starting to be installed there. It will be installed. And those gates are being that gate has been fabricated in a facility in North Dakota. Next slide. So we understand full closures are disruptive. So want to just touch on why it's necessary. So the foundation and the rail system needs to be installed simultaneously. And the rail system does require a precise installation or a very tight tolerance, as well as the foundation is a monolithic pour, meaning that it's all poured at once to allow it to cure without any interruption. And then the other notion of, oh, well, maybe we could plate it or cover it up at the end of the day. The challenge is that the opening or the foundation's width is so large that it wouldn't be safe or practical, and it would actually slow down the progress. Next slide, please. Okay, so the current closure is anticipated to last about 4 months. So however, trying to be aware, we're looking at ways to compress that schedule, make it shorter, which includes looking at multi-shift crews, night work, weekend work, extended hours. So the DEP has authorized the contractor to perform these activities, and this is based on the support from the Hoboken Council. So thank you. The temporary, I do want to note, temporary emergency access will be maintained on 14th and Garden Street and coordinated with the fire department. Sidewalk access on the south side of 15th Street between Park and Garden Street and Bloomfield on the west side of Garden Street from 14th and 15th will be maintained for residents during the closure. I do now, or I would like to introduce Dwayne, who will walk us through some of the traffic items.
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Nelson. I'm a traffic engineer with Michael Baker. We're a consultant for the city of Hoboken. We've been working with the city to try to mitigate the impacts of the upcoming closure and the detour associated with it. If you could pull up the next slide, it has a map of the area and what we're trying to do. So as you know, the intersection of 15th and Garden will be closed, and we're here to try to help mitigate that impact. There will be a sign detour with static signs, the typical orange shaded construction signs, which will direct motorists around the closed intersection. So if you look on this map, the solid arrows are the detour routes. If you're coming south on Park, you'll still be able to make a left onto 15th to access the parking garden garage only. Otherwise, you would have to travel south to 14th, make a left on 14th, and then make a left on Bloomfield to get back to 15th Street. In the opposite direction, if you're already on 15th Street or previously used 15th Street to get to Park or west of there, you would have to, again, either make a left on Washington or Hudson to get down to 14th, proceed west to Park, and make a right on Park and go north on Park. Wanted to let you know that the dotted arrows are representing local access only. So again, you can get to the parking garden garage. You can get to buildings, including the 1400 Bloom parking lot along 15th Street up to Garden Street, but the intersection itself will be closed. Yeah, we've done a traffic study to look at making timing changes to the area traffic signals. As we know, the direct impact will be to Park and 15th and Park Avenue and 14th, but the surrounding intersections will be affected too. So we'll be making timing changes with the county when the closure goes into effect. We've also recommended having traffic officers from the Hoboken Police Department at the blue circled intersection. So that would be at Park Avenue and 16th, Park Avenue and 15th and 14th, as well as Washington and 15th and 14th and Garden. Lastly, as part of our effort, we are planning to install cameras at the intersections, which not only give a view of the intersection, but also perform live traffic counts and give us back data, feedback to see how well the timings are working and if we have to revise them further during the closure, if the traffic pattern differs from what we assumed at the beginning of the closure. I'm going to pass it over to Greg from the city to talk about pedestrian access. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So to minimize some of the impacts, the access constraints to the Park and Garden building or at the Elysian Charter School, we, similar to the last time we did the closure, we're proposing a loading zone for pickup and drop off for Park and Garden and for their shuttle on 14th Street, on the north side of 14th Street between Garden Street and Park Avenue. That'll be operational 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we've consulted with Park and Garden and Elysian Charter about these hours and these locations. We've also added, we plan to add school pickup and drop off zones, obviously serving Elysian Charter and working with on 14th Street on the north side from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then on Bloomfield Street for both sides of Bloomfield Street from 14th to 15th Street from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So during the morning and p.m. Pickup and drop off periods. And we'll also maintain existing loading zones on Bloomfield Street, which are in effect from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And as this map is also showing, pedestrian detour routes, there'll be pedestrian access will be provided in the alleyway between Bloomfield and Garden Street, and the sidewalk will remain open on the west side of Garden Street between 14th and 15th Street to provide pedestrian access from the pickup and drop off zones and Elysian Charter and the Park and Garden building, and also to the garages that will have local access for vehicles and pedestrians.
So just to recap, so we can get right to the questions. We're expected for a 4-month full closure at 15th and Garden. However, the western sidewalk on Garden and the southern sidewalk on 15th will, between Park and Garden Street, will remain open at all times. We will require another closure to install the final amenities, which will be less time. And we'll regroup with you again in advance of that to discuss that closure or and that time frame. The city, along with our team, will host a public project design and amenities meeting later this summer. That has not been scheduled yet, but we are looking to partner with the city and update the community on the design and the amenities. And next slide. Just to reiterate, please visit our website. We have a couple QR codes to stay informed. We have weekly construction updates to keep in the community update. If you sign up for that listserv, on traffic, on other areas we'll be working. We also have our community construction liaisons information here to contact if you have additional questions throughout this construction timeframe. we are offering, we check that daily. We also have Caleb Stratton's contact information. His title has changed. I'm sorry, Caleb. But we and his address, his email address, if you also want to include Hoboken in that outreach. So I just wanted to run through that really quick because I know we have questions to answer. And I appreciate everybody's time. Last slide. All right, and this is just for housekeeping. I know people have already found the questions tab, and I think we're letting Jennifer run through the questions.
Sure. So we will get started with the alleyway schedule. What's the estimated time frame for completion of the alleyway behind 1450? DEP.
Yeah, this is Frank Schwartz. It is the intent of the contractor to go back to that area to complete the basic finish. I think during the presentation, it was stated that that alleyway is going to be opened to the public by tomorrow, I believe. So there is a temporary restoration there. There will be pedestrian access there. Final completion of the amenities. So a completion of that area is not anticipated for the final, probably until sometime late this year, early next year. I'm hoping. I don't know the exact answer on that. I should have looked it up before I got on this call. But yeah, there will be pedestrian access there restored this week at a minimum. So I can't give you an answer on final completion of it though.
Okay. Now we received several comments from the Hudson T, the variety of Hudson T buildings, board president of the new Hudson T community. So questions really related and I'll kind of group them all together because there were a lot of questions related to traffic and circulation. So perhaps we can actually go back to the slide that shows the circulation changes and the maintenance and protection of traffic changes. Janessa? Questions related to, why were the traffic lights on 14th Street not cycled? And why were there a few police managing traffic during the last closure?
Janessa, can you keep going back, please?
One more.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think, Dwayne, can you just please speak to additional signal timing changes that we're making this time and locations for police that we are also implementing during this closure?
Right. So I know there's a couple of symbols on top of each other, but the red hatch, almost pinkish hatch, represents intersections where there'll be timing changes. So that does include Park Avenue and 14th, east through each signal to Hudson. And really the goal there is to have better coordination. So when you get a green at one light, you get a green at the next light as much as possible. And as far as officers, they are represented by the blue circles. So they'll be at Park and 16th, Park and 15th, Park and 14th, 14th and Garden, and Washington and 15th to direct traffic, step out, override the light if it's necessary, keep the box clear. So when the light turns red for one direction, the other direction can go, things like that.
I think that there's a couple pieces I'll add. The first is that the purpose of the Maya Vision cameras is to give us real-time feedback so that if we need to make additional traffic signal changes, they're being made based on actual circulation conditions. The second is that We have a police commander at our Office of Emergency Management on site and leading traffic operations for the police department and making sure that we have officers at the right location. These may be modified as needed. When we did this closure before, we talked about having the resources necessary to make sure that circulation was still flowing. That's the same approach that we're going to have for this closure. And one of the things that we will do is modify our approach based on actual information, or put more resources in this area for the first week or the two of the closure wall. There's some kind of modification that needs to be done. And the third thing that I don't know if we mentioned yet is one of the tools that Greg has is we go on Google Maps and Waze and we'll shut this roadway down so that any drivers that are using GPS to navigate to their location are not being directed towards this area. Greg, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add about how we're trying to really throw the book at this and use a data-driven approach to inform how we manage the assets that we have in place in the North End.
Yeah, and just building on so the MyoVision cameras will also be collecting vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle volumes. So we'll be able to also understand the routes that people are taking and compare. We're going to be using a company called Flow Labs that will give us access to historical data and real-time data for the entire area, extending beyond just these intersections listed here. So we'll have a better understanding of how the current volumes on the roadway network are comparing to historical volumes over the past year. And then we'll also be using this data in conjunction with monitoring that we're doing in other parts of the city where there's other road closures impacting circulation. So we'll have a much more comprehensive approach of what traffic's looking like at the different parts of the city that are currently impacted by construction.
Thanks, Greg.
I will actually keep going with the transportation questions, try to group them all together. So an additional question was during the traffic analysis, did we evaluate changing the direction of Bloomfield Street between 14th and 15th Street so that residents can in the Bloomfield Street garage can exit quicker? Dwayne, would you speak to this a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I believe this question was raised the last closure. Because it's a signal and it's a one-way street, that would require some fairly significant changes to the signal to allow the opposite approach that is one way going north of 14th to now be reversed and go one way south facing the oncoming Bloomfield Street traffic. We spoke to the county about it. Hudson County, that's a county road. They said that, yeah, you would have to construct improvements to that signal to make it work legally, that you're having two opposing approaches facing each other. I don't know if that's been presented as an option to DEP, but that's the initial feedback we got from the county, that it would be kind of a significant undertaking to make that fix.
We also received some questions about whether we would reevaluate the flow of traffic after school resumes in the fall. Caleb, could you speak to that, how our analysis is ongoing?
I mean, I think that the very simple answer to that is yes. And we hosted a stakeholder meeting with the school on Tuesday. We will continue to provide and do outreach that's related to all modes of transportation and making sure that there's safe access to the school. The best thing I can say is that we do the Flow Labs program that Greg was describing is something that we monitor on a daily basis. We also get field reports from the officers that are out there. We were very, very sensitive to both the AM and PM peak issues, which are different depending on which direction you're trying to move and where you're trying to access. We're certainly willing to modify any of the approach of this closure, not only just based on feedback, but what we're seeing in the field in real time.
Another question regarding traffic entering Hoboken from the north, whether it can be diverted down to 11th Street via changing the one-way direction of Park Avenue after 14th Street, making it north to south versus south to north.
I don't believe that that was an alternative we had MBI look at, but I'm willing to take that feedback and we can certainly have them explore that as an alternative. When I say that, that means that we're having Nelson take his group, Dwayne take his group, and then look at level of service analysis that if shifts in those traffic patterns occur, how does it affect, give me 1 second, Gracie. If shifts in those traffic patterns occur, what does it do to upstream and downstream intersections in that neighborhood? This project we're discussing tonight is at 15th Street, but there's also circulation issues that are occurring on Sinatra Drive, on Madison Street. So we can certainly take that feedback and explore that option.
And then I think we, shifting from vehicular traffic to sidewalks, we received some questions related to which sidewalks would be open and closed. Last time we were told the south sidewalk of 15th Street would remain open, and it wasn't the case. We have confirmed with DEP that sidewalk access on the south side of 15th Street between Park Avenue and Garden Street, and also between Garden Street and Bloomfield Street, as well as the west side of Garden Street from 14th to 15th, will be maintained for residents during this closure. As regards other pedestrian safety improvements, there's just a general question as to what type of pedestrian safety improvements will be implemented at 15th Street crossings.
I can answer some of this. Yeah, I mean, we'll have police officers that will help with pedestrians crossing the intersections. We'll be able to we'll have cameras that will be able to detect pedestrian volumes that can help that will see a 360 degree view of the intersection to see if there's any areas that we need to refocus our attention on with either police resources or signal retiming, providing more crossing time for pedestrians. So we're certainly, as a Vision Zero city, we're certainly focusing on pedestrian safety however we can through this project.
Now, I think moving on more so to the sequencing of construction, there was a comment, and I think it relates to several other questions that we received regarding that, people do think the project is worth it, but would like to see certain sections completed before other sections begin construction. DEP, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. I understand that it would be really great to get one part completed. The way that the contract was written did not require the contractor to complete a section to final completion. In that one area. In order for the project to be completed, obviously we need to open up more than one area at a time. We have asked the contractor to tidy them up to the point where, it's livable, and we will come back and install the final amenities once that part of the process started. It's like the alleyway west, we're putting in temporary, like as I told you before, we're putting in a temporary walkway through there for now so that it can be used again. We will be coming back in the near future to complete everything except for that final touch at the top. I would love to be able to tell you that we were going to be able to install these amenities. We are talking to the contractor about where we might be able to implement that, but I don't have an answer as to where that would be and when at this time.
So just to directly answer then, the temporary asphalt within the alleyway is a temporary solution, and it will be temporary until the urban amenities are installed in that location?
It is supposed to go to a concrete base in that area. We are doing some work right now on the logistics of what we specified with the contractor. It is not a simple concrete pour there. It is much more involved in that, so that it's got a different look. So it is a temporary restoration right now. We will come back when we've solved the problems with the concrete. We will take the asphalt out and we will put that concrete base in.
Frank, I think the point of frustration with, I know a number of people on the call today, is that the project's been going on for a year, 2 years. It's going to go on for another 2 years. The disruptions are every single day in this neighborhood. I know that I've communicated this to the project team. The mayor has, council members have communicated it. I want to emphasize this point that we need to work on restoring, not just so it's usable, but that so the project looks the way that it's been presented. And I would encourage you and your team to push the contractor on revisiting their schedule, finding areas of improvement. I think that we've seen some comments tonight about, this is taking too long, or how come this isn't being restored quicker? When these neighborhoods, this neighborhood specifically, you guys have work zones open up all the way north and south in the community. When the community members live outside and look outside of their windows and they don't see action taking, the question goes, why is there not action being taken? And I think that
It's fair.
the city, our administration will continue to push you guys on this, and I think it's an important topic, because having this be an open construction zone for months at a time, and then a closed construction zone for months at a time, reopening, the impacts, I think that we need to start seeing what this project is going to look like, and having a demonstration of how the community is going to live with and interact with the project where it's not a construction zone, because we've just simply been in construction for so long. And I know that the patience is waning. And I see that in the comments, and I hear that in emails and get phone calls. So
No, Caleb, I'm not arguing that point. I will take it back, and we will talk about this.
And to the
Thank
point,
you.
what you just said, Frank, is and totally understood that Caleb, and I do see the frustration here also, and hear about it. But we have asked the contractor too, what areas could we restore? So that conversation's current, and hearing those concerns. So
I think that actually leads right into a whole group of questions related to schedule. Of course, one of the biggest ones being, what can we do to speed this project up? Several questions regarding, can the hours of work be extended to 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? Are you working, 12-hour shifts, etc.? Are you working overnight and weekends? So we received a variety of the same types of questions, and I'd like you to reiterate, what your proposed schedule is, and the proposed work hours, and the extensions.
Sure. It's like, I know in the presentation it was touched on, where the DEP has authorized the contractor to perform extended work hours, as well as weekend work. We do have to juggle the idea of working 24 hours a day with the noise, with the noises, and being mindful that people want to be able to sleep as well. I would also say that part of the issue that we have is that, while we can work the extended hours, while we will work the weekend hours, it is not always a 1-for-1. It's like, there will be time savings. We have evaluated that. There will be time savings. We can hopefully shave an amount of time off of the 4-month closure. But I would also tell you that there are going to be certain moments during this construction where working extra hours really isn't effective, because what'll really be happening is concrete's hardening. So working 12, 14 hours a day really doesn't do much. So again, we have authorized the contractor to work extended hours, weekend hours. And that is currently the plan. I don't know if there's much more I can add to that, so.
Well, I think one of the key questions are the variables. So what variables might cause this 4-month shutdown to be extended?
I think
Go
there could
ahead,
be
Kim.
weather. I mean, the variables are unlimited, unfortunately, but you know, we've already done some utility work in this area, investigated, so that usually underground utilities are the biggest variable and how to deal with those. That that was required by this phasing. I think weather is a variable that is always a variable. Frank, I think, you know, there are demand and supply variables, but I think we've overcome those. You know, this
Right.
is an
I
active
think that,
construction site.
Frank, I think that this question is more specific to the scopes of work, the different trades that are in there. I know that your team has done the majority of the underground investigation. You've done a majority of the utility sleeving. When we talk about variables related to construction, you're talking about days that are weather related, not weeks that are
Right.
conflict related. Is
Right.
that correct?
That is
Correct.
correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
And to clarify, extended hours means
It would be a 12-hour day, probably.
Yeah. And that would be something we would work with the city just to understand what working hours would be acceptable.
and double shifts would also be an option.
Yes.
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 Now, at one point, I believe there was a reference to 2027, and I think this question is related potentially to Harborside Park. When you say complete in 2027, is that January 1st or December 31st?
I would love to be able to say it was January 1st, but we are looking more toward the end of the year.
Okay.
So closer to December 31st.
So to that point, something that I think the city has been asking you for a long time, and certainly the council has expressed this as well, a comprehensive timeline of all closures. And are there multiple points of construction and closure concurrent? I know that you are going to be providing that.
And Jennifer, you know, we actually heard this on Monday when we met with the city council's subcommittee. We are working on putting together all of these closures, timelines associated with those closures. We're currently developing it so that it can be shared. I would think that it would be something that we would be able to share in the future, but it's just not ready yet. We're looking at it right now. So we are looking at that exact request.
Right. And dividing that up into the north and the south and seeing that overlap. So it's a more comprehensive look.
I think there are a few questions as to potential regulations that city regulations requests to suspend them in certain areas, you know, during the time frame of this closure. References were made to street cleaning, to Sunday meters on Washington Street in northern Hoboken. Caleb, would you like to address those?
Sure. So I think that we're looking at everything that is possible to relieve or alleviate the impacts of this construction. I don't know whether or not we can change the Sunday parking meter policy. I think that would require an ordinance, but we're happy to review it. We'll discuss it with the transportation director. What's the second part of that question?
Street
Jen, is
sweeping?
it? No, I do not think that we're going to change street sweeping regulations, simply because it's more than just parking, but it's also trash collection and pickup. But if there's a reason to amend street sweeping because it's impacting or it's having a substantial impact on circulation, we're certainly willing to revisit it. I think that changing regulations is difficult because there are downstream impacts that may not be beneficial. It reduces the turnover parking, and in some cases, many cases, unless there's an emergency, snow plowing, those kind of things, it's not something that we're able to accommodate, but I'm certainly willing to consider anything that helps in the north end.
And I apologize, one more schedule question that I meant to ask before is why wasn't this planned to start earlier in the summer?
Well, I think that we did start trying to plan it earlier in the summer, so we've been coordinating with the EP for a number of weeks now. One of the sequencing issues that we were looking at was trying not to have this closure occur simultaneous with Jersey Avenue. The DEP ended up being ahead of schedule on Jersey Ave reopening by 2 weeks. I think the Elysian Charter School closed within the last week. We're closing. We told them they were not. We, meaning the city of Hoboken, communicated with DEP that they were not able to close 15th Street before the 4th of July holiday because of the circulation pressure we have throughout the city. That was actually a pretty key milestone over the last 6 months for all the different project areas, is making sure that we have as many circulation routes in and out of the city open for that holiday. That came from our public safety divisions, and part of the conversation that we're discussing right now is really focused on transportation and circulation and neighborhood impacts, but we do have a workflow that occurs with police, fire, EMS, our Office of Emergency Management, looking at this project through their lens specifically, and they rest above our other city operations in terms of making sure that our first responders have adequate access. We talked about it a little bit, but there is a feedback loop that we have with this team where we're reviewing public safety first through everything that we're proposing.
Speaking of first responders, a question came up of will this tie up Hoboken Police from completing their regular duties?
We use a program called Outside Police Employment. So it is Hoboken police officers that are not on a regular scheduled shift. They're the ones that are out there in uniform. They're paid by the NJDEP to be in uniform and doing traffic circulation. I also think part of the answer to this question is yes. Not that it ties up from their regular duties, but there is an opportunity through the police chief, if it's necessary, that he can schedule a tour of duty. So if we have on Dwayne's map, you saw 3 or 4 different outside police deployments doing traffic circulation management. If it is necessary, we can have on duty Hoboken police officers there. That is a call that the police chief makes. It's often driven by where there are other projects, what there are other issues. Do they have the availability to do that? But it will not prevent or tie up the police department from completing its normal responsibilities.
DEP, can you speak a little bit to the PSE&G work, specifically how many nights of overnight work are anticipated by PSE&G, and will these dates be communicated in advance?
Yes, the dates will be communicated in advance. We anticipate 1 to 2 weeks of night work. It will occur, I believe, between 10 and 5. And the road, Park Avenue, should be reopened each morning at 5, roughly at 5 o'clock.
And the final closure of 15th Street, you spoke about 3 different phases of closures. How long will that final closure be?
That closure depends on what's completed, for the most part, what's completed here in this particular one. But the hope is that closure is short. Potential that it wouldn't require a full closure. We just don't know until we get to the end of this particular phase of it to understand completely what still remains. So short closure, potentially partial open. Again, just depends on what we finish during this closure.
There are federal funding deadlines associated with this project. DEP, can you just speak to the kind of three
Absolutely.
sets of funding?
Yes, we have
And
three
deadlines.
sources of funding for this project. We have brick funding, which is through FEMA, which is building resilience in communities, I believe, something along those lines.
Infrastructure and
Well,
communities, yeah.
Infrastructure. I'm not good with the acronyms, I'm sorry. But
No, but Frank, we have three funding sources that we're actively using. The brick funding first that we're using this year that expires at the end of this year. Then we'll move into the American Rescue Funds that we have for next year. We'll exhaust those probably by the end of next year. And then for the remainder of the project, we'll be expending from the original HUD grant, the Housing and Urban Development Grant. I hope that answers the question, Jen.
The deadlines associated with them.
Yeah, go ahead, Dennis, sorry.
No, the brick fund deadline is the end of the year. We will expend that fund prior to the expiration. The American Rescue Funds also expire the following year. In December, we will also expend those funds before they expire. And what does that mean? It means we will be using the grants effectively, and they will not require renewals by the federal government. And we are on schedule then to start spending the remainder of the original HUD grant that you originally won in 2014. And that money does not have a current expiration date.
Okay. And apologies, one more transportation question came in later. It was regarding the buses for summer camp. I believe it's at Elysian it's referring to. Greg, do you want to just discuss where school bus drop off and pickup will be?
Yeah, we provided space on 14th Street for summer camp school buses for Elysian. We've also provided pickup and drop off space on Bloomfield. I'm not sure if that's a summer camp that we're aware of that's at Elysian Charter.
I think the last two questions are really going back to the purpose of the project and the benefits of the project. The first one, can flood water get under and through the gate? DEP, you'd like to take this?
it should not be able to, each of the gates is gasketed, so that it should be, there might be a small seep, you know, a little tiny bit of water getting through, but there should not be any additional. And like I said earlier in the presentation, when we did the sewer separation work, we sealed manholes on the outside of the structure so that water wouldn't be able to enter in through there and surface on the other side or enter into the North Hudson Sewerage Authority. So the answer to the question is there should not be water getting through the gates.
Caleb, did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, the entire purpose of the project is for water not to go through the gates. And I think what you see above grade is gates and seawalls, but there's also sheet piling below grade, foundations, piles. What Frank was describing with storm sewer modification complements the interior drainage we're building with pump stations. And, you know, there's federal requirements, there's state permits that we have to secure that are really driven by the Army Corps and FEMA. And so not just the location of the alignment, but the height of the alignment is driven by, you know, our best available science for what we expect to be, you know, either 100 or 500-year storm, which we will prevent with the project, but then also accommodations for sea level rise. So sea level rises and freeboard with the project, meaning that we're building it higher than the minimum requirements, means that we'll be hitting that federal standard, but also anticipating any sea level rise in the future. So no, the point is there's not water going under, through, or over the alignment.
And there was one question specifically related to the Hudson T and benefits to the Hudson T community project.
So the way that I've described this in the past is there's direct and indirect. So the Hudson T building is seaward of the alignment, but the infrastructure of the city that supports it is landward, meaning that our resilience strategy is to both respond to the impacts of severe weather, avoid the impacts, minimize the disruption, and get back to a steady state. So this project protects not just the substations, sewage treatment plant, our water infrastructure, but also our police department, fire departments, the hospital, and the city. And I think having this conversation 13 years after Sandy, I would frame it in that the city's still in the process of recovering from that storm event. And once this process is complete, the goal would be to have the city's resources, the infrastructure that supports the Hudson T building back up and running that day, maybe not losing power, maybe 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, so that we can return to business as usual as quickly as possible. So while the building is not receiving the direct benefits, I think that the indirect value, whether it's just the infrastructure that supports the building or the context of property values and maintenance of quality of life throughout the entire community, those are what I consider to be benefits to that community once this project is complete.
With that, we have no further questions. We will be providing these slides, posting them on the NJDEP website. A little recording glitch, so we'll post a partial video of the presentation this evening on the website as well, including the full Q&A. And we would encourage you to go to the DEP website. If you have not already signed up for their weekly advisories, encourage you to do so. You can also follow the City of Hoboken's weekly construction updates available on the city's website. And if you have any specific questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the email address that's available on the screen here, and feel free to contact us at the city. Caleb's address is listed here, and you can certainly reach Caleb or I with any of your questions. Very much thank you for being here this evening. And any final remarks, DEP or Caleb?
Just thanks for the time, everyone coming out to listen to us try to explain how we're going to execute the closure. And Dennis, thank you to you and your team for taking the time to put this together and to present what is going to be challenging. So we appreciate it.
I want to thank the community for coming out and asking such great questions. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody's patience. Thank you.